ये सारे जो मुद्दे हैं ये तो मैंने कोई इसको खोज के निकाला तो नहीं है, ये तो ऑलरेडी डॉक्यूमेंटेड है। इतिहास हम अपने हाथों से हम बदल नहीं सकते हैं। इतिहास तो जो है उस इतिहास को सिर्फ लोगों के सामने में रखना था।
We'll send him some history books. He should also consult some people who understand the history of Kashmir, and we can send him some names and numbers and then come and have a debate with us. We challenge him.
I don't understand what he's saying about Nehru's blunder. He may be referring to a rumor that my father wanted to accede earlier, but there's no proof about that.
Good evening. Thanks a lot for staying with us here at CNN News 18. You're watching The Right Stand with me, Ridhima Bhatnagar. Mincing no words, the Law Minister Kiren Rijiju today in an op-ed for News18.com has blamed the first Prime Minister of the country, Jawaharlal Nehru, for the situation in Kashmir over the last 7 decades. Now, he says that there are two ways to look at the significance of 27th of October. According to the Law Minister, the first is to mark it as the 75th anniversary of Jammu and Kashmir's accession to India through the instrument of accession, and the second is to look at it as another day of a blunder by Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, the Law Minister has said that a historical lie has been perpetrated for the past 7 decades, that Kashmir was also among the princely states that created problems. He's also clarified that Maharaja Hari Singh, the then ruler of the state, wasn't the one dilly-dallying on joining India, but Nehru himself. The Law Minister says, as documents now reveal, it was Nehru who, in order to fulfill his personal agenda, created these problems and not the Maharaja. Again, according to the Law Minister, it was the vacuum that Nehru created in Kashmir which allowed Pakistan to meddle in Kashmir, and despite Maharaja Hari Singh wanting to merge with India, Nehru remained defiant. On expected lines, the Congress has now hit back, calling all these claims fabricated and an attempt by the BJP to malign the image of the Gandhis. But the larger question is this an uncomfortable truth, or is this a fact far away from reality? First, let me talk to you about the blunders as listed by the Law Minister in that exclusive op-ed that he's written for News18.com. It's up on our website as well. Let's break it down. The first blunder as far as the Law Minister is concerned, the popular approval bogey invented by Nehru for Kashmir's accession. Maharaja Hari Singh pleaded with Nehru, but he negotiated to fulfill the agenda. The second blunder, eventual accession of Kashmir declared as provisional. What was the need? Provisional accession led to the belief then that it was open to debate. Nehru's blunders opened door that seeded 7 decades of a separatist mindset. The third blunder is listed by the Law Minister, approaching the UN under Article 35 rather than Article 51. Now, Article 35A was an article under the Constitution of India that empowered the state legislature of Jammu and Kashmir to define permanent residents of the state along with granting them special privileges. Remember, this article was revoked on the 5th of August 2019 through a presidential order along with Article 370. The Law Minister then went on to say that the Maharaja signed an instrument of accession with India. Nehru gave locus to Pakistan. Nehru accepted Kashmir as a dispute between India and Pakistan. Why is the question that the BJP is asking? The fourth blunder, that let myth perpetrate that UN-mandated plebiscite was being stopped by India. Pak refused to withdraw troops, led to talk of plebiscite being infructuous. The sword of plebiscite hangs on India because Nehru himself opened that door. And the fifth blunder, the creation of Article 370, Article 306A in the interim draft of the Constitution. No justification for such an article, as special case existed only in Nehru's mind. Finally, the Law Minister saying that Nehru had his way. Article 370 came into existence, institutionalizing a separatist mindset. As I said, is this an uncomfortable truth, or is this a fact far away from reality? I will take that to our guests in just a bit. But while the Law Minister also spoke about the blunders of Nehru, he also very categorically spoke about what that blunder meant for the people of Kashmir. Here's a reality check of what really has happened before the abrogation of Article 370. There was a political platform granted to separatist groups. There was open instigation. Pro-Pak propaganda was seen by the likes of the Hurriyat. Protests, buns and stole painting that was seen as normal. Kashmiri Pandits were driven out of the valley by radicals, which also meant that the entry of migrant labourers and businesses was discouraged. There was sheer dominance of Kashmiri parties in Jammu and Kashmir, and state politics was only limited to families like the Muftis and the Abdullahs. Jammu and Ladakh regions where previous governments were ignored as far as the Vikas projects were concerned, and there was no application of vigilance laws in the erstwhile state. Lastly, there were no voting rights for Pakistan refugees and Valmikis, and there were no property rights for women who married outsiders. So the question that we're asking this evening then is, as the Law Minister lists all these blunders, where does the truth actually lie? Let me also now bring in our guest to take this conversation forward. We have the national spokesperson of the BJP, Shehzad Poonawala, spokesperson of the Congress Party, Adil Singh Boparai. We have Javed Beg, political activist and writer of Badgam Kashmir, Lalit Ambardar, Kashmiri activist, and we also have political analyst Sumansi Raman. Good to have all of you on the broadcast with us. Adil, I'd like to begin the conversation with you. The Law Minister and the BJP is very, very clear that what the valley has seen over the last 7 decades has because of the wrong decisions taken by one man, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and I listed these blunders because of vested interest and a selfish agenda.
Well, Ridhima, firstly to the BJP, you can continue your calumny campaign against the first Prime Minister of India. But the truth is that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, for posterity, will always be remembered as the architect of modern India, no matter how hard you try. Point number one. Point number two, we in the Congress are very clear that the BJP is distorting history. If you really want a history lesson, speak to Dr. Kiren Singh. Dr. Kiren Singh is the son of Maharaja Hari Singh. Speak to him. He knows more than you, me, and Mr. Rijiju put together. Number three, you elect a government for governance. You don't elect a government to run a WhatsApp university. Over the past 10 months, there have been 30 targeted killings of Kashmiri Pandits. What has this government done? Will they also blame Pandit Nehru? Today, Kashmir is under president's rule. They have their nominee as the Lieutenant Governor. Whom will they blame? In the past 1 week, more than a dozen Kashmiri Pandit families have been forced to flee Shopian. Who will they blame? It is convenient, Ridhima, to constantly blame previous governments and predecessors. Let me remind the BJP that even Mr. Vajpayee's government was holding conversation and dialogue with the Hurriyat. So will they call even that government as anti-national? So it is convenient. The problem today is that the BJP has emasculated all institutions and means of communication. So they peddle lies and misinformation from morning to evening to evade responsibility.
Okay.
But the fact of the matter today is, who is responsible for the targeted killings of Kashmiri Pandits
Fair
today?
enough. Adil, I will take that to the BJP.
For the past 8
but
years.
speaking about the claims that have been made, Adil, 1 second. I will take that to Shehzad in just a bit. But let's go point by point as far as the claims that have been made by Kiren Rijiju. Now let's talk about whether all the blame was unfairly put on the Maharaja at that time because of the proximity of Mountbatten and Nehru. I'm reading from the op-ed that the Law Minister has written for News18.com. And this is a fact that he's quoting, and this is what he came out during the day also and said that I have not said anything new. This is all established in history. In a speech delivered, one sec, Adil, in a speech delivered in Lok Sabha on the 24th of July 1952, Nehru himself conceded the facts that Maharaja Hari Singh, like all other princely states, wanted to join India and more importantly, had approached the Indian leadership in July 1947, which means this was a full 1 month before India's actual independence. Why the dilly-dallying then?
Let me respond. The Law Minister's op-ed is not worth the paper on which it is written. I repeat, this op-ed is not worth the paper on which it is written. It is utter lies and buncombe. This is misinformation. They can continue to mouth this misinformation, but facts don't disappear depending on the BJP's liking. Speak to Dr. Karan Singh. He is Maharaja Hari Singh's son. Read his book. Don't read BJP and the RSS's WhatsApp University. You will get your facts.
Shehzad,
Please go
response
purchase
to the
his books from
criticism coming
any
in from
bookstore
the
available
Congress.
in the national
This is
capital.
what all
You will
Congress
get to know
leaders have
facts
said
and
all
separate
through the
facts from
day,
fiction.
that this is a WhatsApp university, this is a pattern. As far as the BJP is concerned, they're extremely far away from reality because they just have one agenda, which is to malign the image of the Gandhis.
Of course, I don't command the arrogance at the disposal of the Congress spokesperson, but I hope he will not interrupt me or interject me when I make the statements, because I have heard him out patiently and without interrupting him. First of all, the reason why we need to keep looking into the review of history is because those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat the mistakes of history. And therefore, it's necessary to see, and this entire historical debate has a context in the present as well. What was the essential mistake that Mr. Nehru made when the offer was made? And forget what Karan Singh says right now when he's in the Congress party. But let's see what Mr. Nehru said in Parliament himself. He said that in July 1947, an offer was made. I rejected it, putting a special case. What was the special case? It was two things. One, vote bank politics considerations, and two, friendship above nation, which continued even, by the way, in the 1980 to 1990 decade, in which Farooq Abdullah and the Congress put friendship above nation at the time when the Kashmiri Hindu migration, killings, genocide began. And they ignored it. They ignored it because the third mistake that Mr. Nehru made was that even when the invaders came, instead of signing this accession and getting on board, what he did was he was more interested in getting Sheikh Abdullah seated in the position of power. Again, friendship above nation. Fourth mistake, an internal issue was made an international issue by approaching the United Nations and making promises about a plebiscite. And who repeated that mistake in the present context? Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, when we were abrogating Article 370. You would remember in Parliament, the leader of opposition gets up and says, listen, this is not a matter of India alone. It is India and Pakistan's issue. Who made it international? Congress back then, Congress even now. And the fifth and the final mistake is that the seeds of separatism were sown by Article 370 that went towards Algawad, Atankawad, Parivarwad, Pakistan Parasti and Pattarbazi. Today, when the Article 370 and 35 have been abrogated, please see the 3 Ps have been replaced by the 3 Ds. And what are those 3 Ds? And let me tell you what we've done for Jammu Kashmir ever since 2019. Abrogation of Article 370 has taken place. 1. 15,000 crores of investment came in 70 years in Jammu Kashmir. Today it's 56,000 crores.
Okay.
It was just give me 20 seconds more, please. There was a terror hotspot where 42,000 people were killed. We have seen the kinds of terror incidents that took place. Today it's become a tourism hotspot. 1.62 crore tourists only in this year. And by the way, terror incidents are down by 50%. Patharbazi is down by 99%. Road connectivity is improving. People are getting decentralization, political power. Just the last example, there were 3 political families had political power in 87 seats. Today, 30,000 elected representatives. DDC elections, Tehsil Panchayat elections, Gram Panchayat elections. And therefore, from Parivarwad and special status to the families, special status to the Awam, and central laws are now applicable. Lakhs of rupees are being spent on development. Today we've gone from Banduk and Gun Tantra to Gun Tantra.
I got your point in the terms.
If you allow me to respond.
Yes. Adil, I'm coming to you only.
You are sullying the name of the first Prime Minister of India. Please give me time.
One sec. Adil, I'm coming to you.
He's not a holy cow.
One sec, Shehzad.
Nehru is not a holy cow.
You've made your point.
Yeah.
One second.
First Prime Minister.
That's all right. He may have been. By default, Patel should have been.
Nobody is going to understand anything. One second. Shehzad, you've made your point. Adil, I will let you respond. All I'm trying to understand is the critical point that has been made by the Law Minister, which of course the BJP is also reiterating, that Kashmir wasn't the only princely state. When all the other princely states had a conclusion because of the intervention of the likes of Sardar Patel, why was a special case being seen for Kashmir? Was it because of vested interest of Nehru? Was it because of his personal disliking to the Maharaja? What was the case?
You know, the problem today, Ridhima, is that nobody wants to study and read. And they still want to come on television and mouth lies. Please read on Sardar Patel's views on Kashmir. Please go through Dr. Karan Singh's book. And since the BJP spokesperson has spoken about the BJP contribution, let me remind them another historical fact. The Kashmiri exodus of Kashmiri Pandits in 89 and 90 happened under VP Singh's government. Who was supporting the VP Singh government? It was the BJP government. They won't talk about it. They'll gloss over it. Number two, since January of this year, 30 targeted killings of Kashmiri Pandits. There is a second wave of exodus of Kashmiri Pandits from Kashmir. And this has been reported on your television. Who is responsible?
Let me just
It is very easy to sully the name of the first Prime Minister just because you have this perennial ideological issue. But he is the architect of modern India. You can try to defame him, but that doesn't change the facts. At least have some respect. You talk about patriotism and nationalism. Is this your patriotism?
May I come in?
I'm going to give you 30 seconds when the Congress has been saying that what about the basic respect that the first Prime Minister should be given. And more importantly, the point that they're making is that we wouldn't have been even a free country if it wasn't because of the work done by Nehru. 30 seconds, Shehzad. I really have to bring in the other guests as well.
Firstly, the first Prime Minister of this country, even though he became Prime Minister after his machinations and denied Sardar Patel the opportunity, does not mean that he's a holy cow who's beyond question, whose policies are beyond question. He's not a deity. And secondly, in a democracy, we should question everybody. Point number two, the independence was not his gift to our country. It was the gift of lakhs of freedom fighters. Thirdly, let me come to the point that we're discussing. The exodus and the killing of the Kashmiri Pandits, by the way, the seventh one, there have been 7 genocides, but the 7th one did not start in 1989. It started in 1980s. Let me give 3 specific examples. 1983, India-West Indies match, Pakistan Zindabad slogans chanted. Whether it was Bal Ganju, Tikku, whether it was Justice Ganju, all of them were assassinated. 70 terrorists were left when there was a government of Farooq Abdullah and there was a government of Rajiv Gandhi in the center. And all of this happened between 80 to 90. It did not happen overnight. And Relief Salif Gali was the slogan given. But last point, he is talking about Kashmiri Pandits today. When the Kashmiri Pandits were driven out and people like Lalit Ambardar are there, they call Hindu terror so easily. Before there is rehabilitation, there must be repentance. Do they even acknowledge this is Islamic Jihad? Point number 1. Point number 2, who wants to start talking to Pakistan at a drop of a hat? Farooq Abdullah and their entire Gupkar ecosystem. Point number 3. Point number 3. Point number 3. Does he, just one link.
Shehzad, I have to bring in the other guests also. Shehzad, I have to bring in the other guests also. Okay, Adil and Shehzad, I will come back to both of you. 1 second. Okay, 1 second.
Kashmiri Pandits as Islamic Jihad. As Islamic Jihad, a product of Islamic Jihad.
Shehzad and Adil, I expect better from both of you. 1 second. Let me just bring in my other guests who've been patiently waiting as well.
I can answer that if you give me 10 seconds.
1 second, Shehzad. Let me bring in. Okay, I will come back to you. Let me bring in the other guests also. Lalit, I want to bring you in. I want to understand, do you agree with the kind of claims that have been made by the law minister who says, one, that there was a vested interest at play? Even if I put that aside, the other categorical point that has been made by the law minister is that because of these, 1 second Adil, that because of these vested interests, there was disservice done to the residents as far as Kashmir is concerned, and it gave an opportunity. There was a gap that was created for Pakistan to try and move inside India.
See, whenever a patient visits a doctor, what does the doctor do? He takes out his standard prescription and asks the name of the patient, age, and the symptom. Then he also asks about the history of the disease. He sometimes asks about whether there is a hereditary issue involved in the family. So, and then only he prescribes the medicine for the disease. So it's very important to understand Kashmir Jihad is a disease. And if we do not contain Kashmir Jihad in Kashmir, dozens of Kashmirs are already erupting in the rest of India. Mind it. Kashmir Jihad is part of the same war, Ghazwa-e-Hind war that began 1,000 years ago. And in 1947, the creation of Pakistan, when millions of India-born millions betrayed their motherland in the name of Jinnah's two-nation theory, in the name of Islam, created Pakistan. It was one of the biggest achievements of Ghazwa-e-Hind. Kashmir is only a medium, a passage to capture Lal Killa. Every jihad organization is claiming that openly. We tend to deny that. Number 2, Jawaharlal Nehru, what all has been said, if they can refute it, please check up with the lecture. It's very easy. Go to the Lok Sabha records and read whether it's being said or not. But the fact is, this Maharaja Hari Singh, he was the only authority the only authority as per the Independence of India Act who could have signed the instrument of accession. And he is the one in London Prince's Conference, he claimed outwardly that I'm an Indian first. And then he kept on arguing, begging that I want to have accede, but the Nehru and Congress put conditions. Well, you have to bring forth Farooq first, release Sheikh Abdullah from the jail, and then make him part of your system, and then only we'll sign the accession. It is, you don't have to read the books. You have to know the history, which is in the newspapers, which is recorded in the newspapers even. Everybody talks about it. But two, when he signed the accession, can you imagine the hero of the accession, Maharaja Hari Singh? Hero of the accession was made villain. He has to go to exile. And number two, of course, I as a Jammu Kashmir citizen, right? I apologize on behalf of the whole Jammu Kashmir people's subjects. His subjects betrayed the Maharaja. Can you imagine what kind of progressive state he had made? It extended from
a very important thing that Lalit is saying, and he's saying, look how history has been twisted. Look how a narrative has been built. He's saying the Maharaja, who in fact pleaded to Nehru, saying, let's unite with India, let's have that accession done. It was in fact delayed by Nehru. Suman C. Raman.
He knows more than his son.
One sec. Suman C. Raman.
Maharaja Hari Singh's son.
One sec. Adil, I'll give you a fair opportunity.
What are you discussing, Ridhima?
One sec.
Mr. Lalit knows more than Dr. Karan Singh, who's the Maharaja.
Adil, the least you can do is be civil to a Kashmiri Pandit. You drove them out of the valley. At least have the civility to talk to one with respect.
Shehzad.
You know, your arrogance is only second to your ignorance. That's the problem with the people like you and Congress Party.
I expect better from all of you.
No, but at least
Adil and Shehzad. Yes, okay.
Kashmiri Pandit with some respect.
Fair enough.
That man has been driven out of his house.
Okay. He's making a point for himself.
Yeah, but
I think
does not need
one
to be,
sec. Shehzad and Adil, I will be forced to mute both of you. You will have to respect as far as the decorum of the debate is concerned. I'm sure Lalit is capable enough of making his own point, and let's respect the other guests who've been patiently waiting as well. Sumant, I want to understand. Look at what Lalit is saying, and he's making a very crucial point. He's saying the entire narrative has been twisted because of Western. One sec. Lalit, I'll come back to you. Sumant, I just want to understand this from you. The point that he's making is that a narrative has been twisted because of vested interest of one family. The Maharaja, on reality, actually pleaded to Nehru as far as the accession is concerned, but it was dilly-dallied by Nehru because of interests best known to him. Do you buy that argument that is being made?
I mean, it's completely absurd, because unless you state what that vested interest was, there is no logic in such an argument. This is like saying that somebody committed a crime with there is no motive for it. So the whole issue is very simple. Nehru wanted to know the opinions of the people of the state before the accession, and in fact, because he was a true Democrat. I mean, it was, and you must remember that these decisions were never taken, unilaterally by anyone. There were many tall leaders at the time. It is not like today's government where one or two people decide everything and everybody just tags along. So it is the fact that there were many tall. Sardar Patel, in fact, was for having an exchange of conceding Kashmir if Hyderabad could be brought into the Indian Union. That is something which is on record. In fact, he sent a message to Liaquat Ali through Mountbatten.
Don't speak it in the out of context.
Hello, please, can you keep quiet? Who is this guy? Why is he shouting? Please wait. I haven't spoken for 25 minutes.
Hatred against Sardar Patel. Did Nehru Congress ask Hyderabad?
Okay, let Suman make his point. I have to bring in Javed also. Suman, make your point.
Now, what is he shouting about? 1 minute. Please keep quiet. My point is very simple. Look, please. Please keep quiet. Let me finish my point. I didn't interrupt you. Have some decency. 1 minute. It is on record
Suman, make your point.
that Mountbatten informed Liaquat Ali about this information which was conveyed by Sardar Patel, and the answer of Liaquat Ali was, why should we give up a state like Hyderabad for mountainous rocks in Jammu and Kashmir? That was the answer. But the point is, it was whatever decision was taken on Kashmir in those days was a collective decision of many tall leaders, all of whom acted in the best interests of the country. So there is no question of anyone today coming and questioning their integrity at any point of time in the process. Their genuine mistakes could have been made. I mean, for instance, in 1962, Jawaharlal Nehru did make genuine mistakes. And in fact, that those are well documented. But to now, in hindsight, after 75 years, to come up with a yarn like this, I think is extremely unfortunate. And Shehzad talks about the tremendous success that removal of Article 370 has brought into Jammu and Kashmir. There are roughly, I was told, about 500,000
So the point that
troops
Sumant is
to
making, and I just want to bring in
tremendous
Javed in the
development.
conversation before I go back to the
500,000
political
troops are there.
spokespersons. The point that Sumant is making is that what is the point of raking up an issue that, according to him, has no significance on the ground today? And he's also saying that possibly the BJP is trying to make one man as the villain, where the situation was very different. It was a collective decision that was taken. Javed, you've been patiently waiting. I apologize I couldn't come to you earlier. Do you buy the argument that is being made by the likes of Sumansi Raman and others that it is easy to make the likes of Nehru a scapegoat and a villain today, but it doesn't really serve any purpose in the current times that we live in?
And it may not be true.
I don't want to get into that. I don't know. We have bigger issues now. Whatever happened in the past, what mistakes Congress committed, Congress is repenting for that. And the leadership, which was visionless, we all understand what happened in the region. I am a victim of their mistakes they committed in 47, because I have been seeing terrorism in my region last 3 decades. A community, left homeless. Community, they are nowhere now, Kashmiri Pandits. And again, the mistakes Congress committed in 47, I think BJP is again repeating that mistake. This whataboutery and putting blame on each other will not solve our issues now. We have to move ahead. Today, I attended a function that was presided over by Honorable Defence Minister at Old Airfield, Srinagar. And the historic speech he made there, I was able to find vision there. I was able to find the confidence which was lacking in last 7 decades, not only in Kashmir but in entire country. So, it's a suggestion. We should fight now. Our country is going to become Vishwaguru. India at 100 should be a country.
So the point, Shehzad, that is being made is that what is the point to look back? You've already had the abrogation of Article 370 and nobody is denying the fact in terms of the progress that the valley has made. So when we are taking 2 steps forward, why are we taking 10 steps backward?
Let me first begin by addressing what has happened vis-a-vis the Kashmiri Pandits, because it obviously behoves us to tell you that what has exactly transpired in the period after the abrogation. Thousands of people got domicile certificates. In 10 years of the UPA gave 1,400 jobs. We gave 5,500 jobs to Kashmiri Pandits. First time the Kashmiri Pandit community has a right to reclaim their property which was taken away during the 1980s to 90s. Kendriya Vidyalayas, higher education, J&K reservation rules all have been relaxed so that Kashmiri Hindus can get better benefits. There were 2,000 units that were created for accommodation by their government. 6,000 have already started from our time. And one more thing, they will say, but why are the Kashmiri Pandits leaving? Why aren't you taking them back? Ma'am, before rehabilitation comes repentance. They do not even sit here and acknowledge that what has happened to Lalit Ambardar is Islamic Jihad. Raleef Salif Ghalib was the slogan given from mosques. And they say Kashmiri Files is a fake movie.
But let me come to now. When you say that you worked in the betterment of Kashmiri Pandits, just look at the last 2 weeks and the targeted killings that have happened. The rehabilitation hasn't happened.
Absolutely. You think that the Pakistan-sponsored terrorism is going to evaporate and they are not going to try and target and stall this process? But let me give you one more practical example. Yasin Malik, who was feted with biryani in Manmohan Singh's office, today he was caught by the scruff of his neck and convicted for the killings of people there, and now he's also being tried for the IAF officers being killed. But let me ask you another question. Just Ridhima,
Shehzad, I've completely run out of time. 10 seconds.
Very unfair.
10 seconds.
This skewed view of history. 370, when it was abrogated, Chidambaram, Mr. Raman's good friend, said it was abrogated because it is Muslim bahul, it is Muslim populated, and he gave it a communal spin. And this was the same thing Nehru said, that ghiste ghis jayega. First time the Valmikis of Jammu Kashmir are getting their rights. Women of Jammu Kashmir are getting their rights. These people who crusade about Dalit rights are very unhappy that rights are being given to Jammu Kashmir Dalits.
Okay, Shehzad, I've taken your point. Unfortunately, I've completely run out of time. I appreciate all our guests taking out the time and joining us for this debate. I have some breaking news coming in that I want to shift our focus to.